The big news from Subaru is the all-new 3-row Ascent. It's the biggest SUV from Subaru ever. There's room for 7 or 8 passengers, with a choice of second-row captain's chairs or bench seating. It'll tow up to 5,000 pounds, and it has all the interior space you need for all your gear. And it gets your whole crew to the game with the safety of a Subaru, including standard symmetrical all-wheel drive. The all-new 3-row Subaru Ascent. Love is now bigger than ever. Maximum towing capacity varies by trim level, and trailer brakes may be required. See your retailer for details.
The Fantasy Focus Football Podcast is presented by ZipRecruiter. Hiring used to be hard. Multiple job sites, stacks of resumes, a confusing review process. But today, hiring can be easy with ZipRecruiter, the highest-rated hiring site in America. And now our listeners can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/06010. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
Fantasy, you in the 06010.
Welcome into the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast. It is a Wednesday edition, and we are live on Twitter every day. My name is Field Yates, alongside Matthew Berry and Stephania Bell. Good morning to both of you.
Thank you, and I want to just correct you right there, and I want to praise you for getting that correct. Your name is, in fact, Field Yates. Got that right. That was the part you were going to correct me on. Thank you, Matt. No. I was going to say I was going to congratulate you for getting it correct. I was busy tweeting out the fact that we're live on Twitter. They like us to promote the show. I constantly get emails saying, why don't you promote the show? You got to send out a tweet about the show that you can watch the show live on Twitter. Please promote. Send more tweets. Tweet.
We had our busiest day in terms of viewership on Tuesday on the live stream on Twitter. And we really appreciate you guys hanging out with us. It doesn't have to be for the whole show, but even if it's part of it, if you're at the office, if you're not yet at the office, if you're
driving, we're good with that. You know, if you're in church, we're happy to do it there.
Yeah.
100%.
Church sessions,
absolutely.
Right?
First off, people go to church every day.
I guess that's true.
100%. Make no mistake about that. So, where, like at a funeral, take us with you there. We're appropriate everywhere, to be perfectly honest. I think it makes a lot of...
everywhere.
No, listen, you're at the doctor's office. Make sure we're there on your phone, watching us there while you're getting examined. It's just, the fact of the matter is that when you think about it, the three of us, and really me, goes with everything. There's no situation in which it's not appropriate to have me alongside in your pocket.
We got a busy show today. We got lots of rankings chatter, including...
Bring me to a conference call. Bring me to a big meeting. Like take me to where you've got like a big round conference table and somebody's making a presentation. Yeah, exactly. Take me to a WeWork, and then you put me up there. Put your little phone or your iPad or something like that. And you can just sort of watch, and it's like there. It's me. Hey, it's your work buddy Maddie.
And you're interrupting. You'll interrupt them just like you do us.
Now you can feel what it's like to be Field and Stephania every day of your life.
Time for some news and notes.
Extra, read all about it.
News or noise?
Loud noises!
Hey, you know what's interesting today? We should mention real quickly, Field Yates, before we get into it. Thirsty Kyle behind the controls.
That's right. Thirsty Kyle's taking over behind the controls for today and for tomorrow, as Daniel Dopp has some commitments. And honestly, it's good for Kyle to just continue to be groomed in a variety of different positions.
Is it? Because here's the thing. He was hired as ESPN Fantasy Department's researcher, which is what he does. He's the man with the stats. He's with all due respect to Tristan H. Cockcroft, he's the Sultan of Stat. So Kyle is Mr. Stats, and here Daniel Dopp is sort of pawning off his gig to Kyle.
First off,
Kyle's whole job is to do research for the fantasy team, and now all of a sudden, now here's Secret Squirrel just like, hey,
Matthew?
do my job.
Listen, Matthew, hold on, Daniel, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Daniel was hired to be an audio producer podcast here at ESPN. Mm-hmm. You pawned him off under your TV show.
Yeah, that's right.
Obviously.
This is the pot calling the kettle black, right? Like, this
what
is
I do.
How things work.
Welcome to ESPN. Welcome to my career.
I just want to say, yes, I am grooming Kyle.
Okay.
And I want to say a big shout out to Dollar Shave Club for everything you've done to help in that regard. He has been cleaner than he's ever been.
Yeah. I was just going to say, if you really want to be Dopp, you should show up tomorrow with a big bushy beard and full sleeves attached.
No, certainly doesn't work that way.
Maybe you can borrow some sleeve tattoos from Jeff Hardy. Shout out to WWE.
And get some band t-shirts.
Let's get down to the news.
Obscure, crappy bands, though.
Let's get to the news or noise of the day. We begin in Tampa Bay, where I think we've mentioned this a little bit previously, but as we now are just days away from Ryan Fitzpatrick's first of 3 straight starts no matter what, we continue to have I would say, non-definitive answer in terms of who will start for the Buccaneers in week 4 of the regular season. As a matter of fact, Jameis Winston is not guaranteed.
It's going to be Jameis Winston. There, I solved it for you. It's going to be Jameis Winston.
Matthew, that Jameis Winston
It's noise.
Okay. So, again, the question was going to be, is it news or noise that Jameis Winston has not yet been declared the starter for week 4 when he returns from suspension? Matthew says noise.
I think it's complete noise. I think it's Dirk Cutter trying to maybe light a fire under Jameis Winston, trying to, do the whole coach thing of like, you got to earn it on the field, but stop it. Dirk Cutter is fighting for his NFL life as a head coach at the moment. He is on the proverbial hot seat, and we certainly don't wish anyone to lose their job, Field Yates, but the fact of the matter is that comes with a job when you're a head coach in the NFL, and I believe he is on the hot seat, and you're not winning your job. You're not keeping your gig with Ryan Fitzpatrick. Now, we will see if Jameis Winston can keep it or not, but honestly, one of the reasons why Dirk Cutter has the head coaching job is because of, in theory, his connection with Jameis Winston. He was the offense coordinator when Jameis Winston was a rookie quarterback, I believe, and they made a coaching change but kept Cutter and elevated him because of the connection they thought Cutter and Jameis Winston had. There's absolutely no way that if he is healthy, Jameis Winston isn't starting as soon as he's eligible. This is complete and total noise.
To be fair, the comments came from the general manager. They did not come from Dirk Cutter. So but this is my point.
I understand. But
this is my point. Like it came from the GM. And it did not come from Dirk Cutter, so we'll see. Dirk Cutter made a point of saying that Jameis had made improvements over the summer.
One last layer to this, by the way, is that he is scheduled to return in week 4, a short week for the Buccaneers. They have a bye week in week 5. That's why there's some people who have been talking about this at length. Matthew thinks it's noise.
What do you think?
I agree it is noise.
There you go. Thank you very much.
I agree it is noise.
Starfania, your thoughts? News or noise? You have to actually
I think it's noise, but I also think it's important that we provide the context.
Okay, well, the Jaguars listed Keelan Cole and Dante Moncrief as their projected starters at wide receiver in week 1. This is a depth chart. Is it news or noise?
I believe this is also noise. Give me D.D. Westbrook. I just think look, depth charts are sort of written in pencil. Maybe it means Dante Moncrief is on the field the very first time they take an offensive snap. But in terms of my ranks, in terms of where I would feel comfort level, I'm starting D.D. Westbrook over Dante Moncrief. The truth of the matter is that I wouldn't feel great about any of them. If I had to pick one, it's Keelan Cole for week 1, but I think we need to see a little bit more about what this passing game offense looks like post Marquise Lee.
Again, I believe this is noise as well. I believe that Keelan Cole and D.D. Westbrook, like Matthew just said, represent the most upside. That being said, neither one of them strikes me as the kind of guy that I will have room for in my week 1 lineup unless I play in a very deep 16-team league, perhaps with 3 wide receivers per lineup. Both players have some upside. Let's see it first. One more piece of news or noise, Stephania, is that Chad Williams, a third-round pick in 2017 out of Grambling, is listed as the Cardinals' number 2 receiver behind Larry Fitzgerald. In theory, people were wondering, what about Christian Kirk? Is it news or noise that Williams is getting the, quote, starting nod here over Christian Kirk?
Noise. We've already made this reference about the depth chart. And again, I think it's important to add the context. People saying it will be likely a rotation between Williams, Christian Kirk, and J.J. Nelson. So, again, these things will sort of prove themselves out after the start of the season.
I think it's a little bit of news. To be honest, because I buy this. Like, Christian, I have, and maybe I'll find out I'm wrong on this. I'm 100% I could be completely wrong on this. But I have no shares of Christian Kirk in any redraft league this year. That, and understand, as somebody who grew up in College Station, Texas, whose father's a professor still at Texas A&M University, who grew up at Kyle Field, who roots for the Aggies on Saturday. Good luck, Jimbo Fisher, this year. I'm a big Christian Kirk fan just as a talent. Played almost exclusively in the slot in college. Obviously, the Cardinals have a slot receiver named Larry Fitzgerald who's not going anywhere. So there's a little bit of a learning curve here. And, Chad Williams is somebody that a young player that I know they like in Arizona. I think it's going to be a while before we see Christian Kirk get significant snaps, barring an injury.
Yeah, I think, to be honest with you, I don't know that it's news or noise. For this reason, is that even if it's true, which would make it newsworthy, it's still noise.
You don't care because
I don't care. It's a number 2 Cardinals wide receiver. I could be proven wrong here. I just don't buy the idea that Chad Williams or Christian Kirk or any other potential wide receiver in Arizona, not named Larry Fitzgerald is going to matter.
Because the number 2 pass catcher, if he's not number 1, is going to be David Johnson.
That's correct.
I think it's going to be Larry Fitzgerald and David Johnson, and then some random catches.
Well, I will say this. That last year, their week 1 game is against the Washington Redskins, my Washington Redskins, and I believe the Redskins defense will be improved this year, but they have consistently struggled against the tight end over the last couple of years. Ricky Seals-Jones is, speaking of Texas A&M, Ricky Seals-Jones was a preseason sleeper for me. Other people like him as well. Honestly, if I had to pick a Cardinals pass catcher that wasn't Larry Fitzgerald or David Johnson, give me Ricky Seals-Jones on Sunday, who I think is an interesting DFS play and a tight end play if you're in a deeper league.
We'll put a bow on this one because we discussed it yesterday. Mike Gillislee is not only now a member of the New Orleans Saints, but he is the number 2 running back. It's confirmed through the depth chart, Matthew. Is that news or noise?
I think it's a little bit of news in this sense that it's interesting that they would come out this quickly for a guy that just got there 2 days ago and basically say, yep, he's our number 2. So even if it's in paper, I don't think there's any actionable item there because I don't think that you are going to start Mike Gillislee. Except as as a desperate Hail Mary. Like I can't imagine starting any Saints running back other than Alvin Kamara. But I will say it's a great matchup against Tampa Bay. I could certainly see Mike Gillislee falling into the end zone here. I'm personally not going to start him because I want to see how it plays out. But I do think it's a little bit of news that this quickly he's risen above everyone else they had there, Boston Scott and the like.
I think the ripple effect for Mike Gillislee signing matters more once we get to week 5 of the NFL season when Mark Ingram is there. And what does it mean for Ingram or perhaps Alvin Kamara as well? If it's a 3-headed attack in the backfield, that is not as ideal for a player that you're going to probably be drafting in the first 7 picks of your draft. 66% of men lose their hair by age 35.
Why are you looking at me?
Happened to Matthew at 25, but we'll digress. The thing is, when you start to notice hair loss, it's just too late. It's easier to keep the hair that you have than to replace the hair that you've lost. Is that hairline slowly starting to move backwards like a caterpillar? Yep. Any bald spots yet?
Oh, yeah.
How will you feel a year from now if it's business as usual up top?
It's the same.
Okay.
Hating life, hating myself.
I asked you, do you want a bald spot to pop up or do you want to do something about it first? More bald spots. Okay.
No bald spots.
Do you want your hairline to recede more?
No.
Okay. Well, then why do guys turn to weird solutions or do nothing when they can turn to medicine and science?
I think it's because I'm lazy.
Forhims.com is a one-stop shop for hair loss, skincare, sexual wellness, and others for men. Thanks to science, baldness can be optional. Hims connects you with real doctors and medical-grade solutions to treat hair loss. Well-known generic equivalents to Nambrain prescriptions to help keep your hair with no snake oil pills or gas station counter supplements. There's no waiting room either. There's no awkward in-person doctor visits. You can save hours by going to forhims.com. It's so easy. Answer a few quick questions. The doctor will review and can prescribe you. Products are shipped directly to your door. Order now and our listeners get a trial month of Hims for just $5 today. Right now, while supplies last. See website for full details. This would cost hundreds if you went to the doctor or a pharmacy. So instead, go to forhims.com/FFF. That's FORHIMS.com/FFF. Forhims.com/FFF. Rankings have been live since I believe Monday afternoon this week for week 1 of the NFL season.
And I just have to say, Field, sorry to interrupt you for one quick second.
No, I'm used to it.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate that. I think Kyle's doing a great job.
Kyle is doing a great job.
So far, I mean, we're on live on Twitter. We haven't gone off the rails yet. Kyle, do you want to come do the fantasy show as my co-host today?
Sure.
Like, honestly, we might as well replace Daniel at all times.
I have to grow a beard before then.
Nope, 100% not.
We're good. All right.
Seriously, come be the co-host of the fantasy show on ESPN.
Kyle has the deepest voice. You'd think he could grow a beard in the next 20 minutes based off of that octave.
The problem is he's got this baby face. He looks 12.
He does. Kyle and I, we're buds.
I got you.
Quarterback rankings. Week 1, they have been live since Monday afternoon. Keith, if I'm not mistaken, they will normally be out, if all things are go, on Tuesday afternoons.
That is correct.
All right, so prepare to set your lineup starting Tuesday afternoon each week. But let's begin with some quarterbacks, and Phillip Rivers is our first one. Before I say that, though, I should note, Stephania is joining the cast of rankers this year, which is really good news because, as we often say, Stephania is the smartest person that we have on the fantasy staff here at ESPN.
And it's so great because I can't wait. Because Stephania gets so much grief on Twitter, just to begin with. Because, you know what, I mean, like, we all get grief on Twitter, but I think it's especially hard for women on social media. And so the fact that she's decided to now dip her toe into the most argued about, the most angry conversation that happens in terms of fantasy football Twitter, I think is awesome. Because I'll just be like, I'm just going to, now I can just send my the hate that comes to me. Just like Stephania has him 2 spots lower or whatever it is.
You could just direct more towards
pretty much.
Yep.
Just at Stephania_ESPN to argue with her ranks.
And the good news is we kind of have a sort of a tiebreaker each week for them when we have discrepancies. Let's begin with Phillip Rivers. Matthew and I both have him at 9 because we are best friends.
Totally. Totes.
Stephania has him at 13. Best friends.
Okay.
I hope we have that on video. Stephania has him at 13. So Stephania, because you are the odd person out here, would you like to make the case that Phillip Rivers is not a starter this week?
Yeah, I think I have him outside my top 10 just because of his performance against Kansas City in the past, and just I like some of the other folks' matchups a little bit better. Make no mistake, I love Phillip Rivers because I know he's going to sling it every week. He's going to put up a lot of yardage, but he's also going to throw some picks. I know Kansas City's defense isn't really scaring anyone, but if you look at how he's performed against them, his 2 worst games last season both came against Kansas City. Since 2014, he's had struggles against them. 9.37 points per game against Kansas City. Phillip Rivers average 17.94 fantasy points per game average against the rest of the NFL. That stat courtesy of now semi-producer Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I hear what you're saying, Stephania. I guess for me, Field, and we talked about this a little bit pre-show, it's that the Chiefs teams that Rivers has struggled against in the past doesn't exist anymore. I mean, they've got an entirely new secondary. Obviously, Marcus Peters is over there playing for Sean McVay and Wade Phillips in Los Angeles. I just don't see this. Honestly, I think Rivers has a big game here. Remember, take out the 2 Chargers games from the Chiefs last season, and one of them was like a really crazy, weird game where Rivers just, completely wet the bed, as it were. Chiefs allowed over 18 fantasy. I was going to say something else, and then we're live on Twitter.
We're still live, yes.
And I don't want to do it to Thirsty Kyle. I'd do it to Daniel, but I don't want to do it to Kyle. Anyway, they gave up over 18 fantasy points a game. We know Rivers is going to sling it here.
Right. Yeah, I think this is my rankings is a reflection of my confidence in Rivers for most of the season. Also noting, as you said, the Chiefs secondary is really sort of a scrap heap right now. The number 1 cornerback for them this year is going to be Kendall Fuller, acquired in the Alex Smith trade. They signed David Amerson to a deal worth $6 million and then cut him.
Yeah.
Daniel Sorensen, one of their starting safeties last year, he's on IR, even though I think all things being equal, they're trying to upgrade at that spot. Eric Berry's
I am a little worried about Eric Berry
right now.
His lack,
a lot
his
of factors that sort of give me pause about this Chiefs defense this year. I think that.
And by the way, Kendall Fuller, who was sorry, I completely interrupted you.
Again.
Go ahead. I know. Go ahead. Sorry. Please go ahead. Finish what you're saying.
The point was simply this, that I think the Chiefs are going to be a shootout team this year. This is going to be a common theme that I might find myself ranking quarterbacks facing Kansas City higher than they normally would be in a given week. All right. Ben Roethlisberger. We know that home road Ben is almost always the first thing that we discuss with him going into a fantasy season because it's real. Well, he plays in Cleveland this weekend, and these are not your typical Cleveland Browns. The range for Ben Roethlisberger this week is 9 to 17. I have him at 11, which is the highest amongst these 3. Matthew, you have him at 14. How nervous are you about Big Ben this week? And might it be more about Ben, or could it be about the Browns?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bunch of different things. First off, the road Ben is a real thing, right? And what does this offense look like if Le'Veon Bell doesn't play or is limited? We're still waiting to see. So do they throw more? Is a little bit out of sync? In theory, the conventional wisdom, I guess, would be, well, they're going to throw more. But there's something about having, Le'Veon Bell is such a huge part of that passing game. And as good as James Conner has looked in the preseason, he ain't Le'Veon Bell, and it's going to be slightly different. The fact of the matter is that, Vegas is projecting 25 points for the Steelers in this particular game. In games last year in which the Steelers scored 25 or fewer points last season, Ben averaged 13.9 fantasy points per game. He's averaging under 14 points per game on the road over the last 4 seasons. He has struggled against Cleveland in the past on the road. It just makes me a little bit nervous honestly, there's a little bit of uncertainty, and honestly, there's some really great quarterback matchups this week that have vaulted Ben ahead of him. So I'm at 14. I have him as a high-end QB2.
I don't disagree with a lot of the points you made. I have him as a non-starter in a 10-team league for myself as well. I think part of my concern is just not knowing exactly what this Cleveland secondary is made of. Rookie cornerback Denzel Ward could be a really good player for them. It's also his first ever NFL game. And the Steelers' offense, and we are not ignoring the elephant in the room that Le'Veon Bell is not yet back in their building. But if they do have him, it's about as good of an offense as you could see week to week in the NFL.
100%. I mean, Big Ben is one of those guys that has a wide range of outcomes every single week, which is one of the frustrating things about starting him, especially on the road.
Yeah, some people drafted Ben as part of a 2-quarterback rotation on their team, and this would be one of those weeks that, provided you have a more stable option, you might say, all right, I will avoid Ben and wait until they're playing Cleveland at home as opposed to on the road. All right, this one's an interesting one because this is the biggest split we saw, and Stephania, Jimmy Garoppolo is not just your beloved Jimmy Garoppolo because he plays for the 49ers, but inside your top 10. You have him at 8. I am at 14. Matthew has him at 20, and this is a matchup against the Vikings. So, Stephania, state the case for why you believe Jimmy G should be a starter this week.
Look, we have a very small sample size on Jimmy G. I get that. I understand why people are still not prepared to totally buy in. But look at last year, how he performed against Jacksonville. He was quarterback 4 that week. Now, granted, it was week 16.
Yep.
But
and at home. The game was in San Francisco.
Yeah, but Jacksonville was pretty impervious to road home splits last year. So I don't totally buy that argument. And I think he's going.
I don't know what impervious means. Just going to say.
Matthew's got a word of the day calendar.
I'm looking it up right now.
But I think.
Is that a Harry Potter word? I feel like that's like a, was that like, it's like a spell that McGonagall will say, like, impervious.
The fact that you know who McGonagall is, Matthew, my heart is bursting with pride right now. It really is.
Matthew,
yeah.
Don't you think I would have done it by now?
Thank you. 10 points to Slytherin.
The bottom line is that now with an entire offseason to work with his receiving core, he's got many options back. And I think, quite frankly, look, they lost Jerick McKinnon. They're going to have some splits here between Morris and Breda, but I think that you're going to see a lot of throwing from Jimmy G, and I'm not concerned about it. Plus, some couple of big plays. I think the big play potential with Marquise Goodwin is there, so I think he's still going to put up a lot of fantasy points.
All right, Matthew, she seems to think he's going to be a starter. You seem to think he's going to be, I guess, a week 1 bust.
Yeah, I mean, I am as QB 20 in my initial ranks here, and it's partially. It's not that I hate Jimmy Garoppolo, but I will tell you that it goes into like, if I had this guy, would I start him? That's how I do my ranks. Obviously, once you take in the projections and all the number crunching, the fact of the matter is that last year Minnesota allowed a league low 2 different games of 16 quarterback points.
Right.
And neither of which came in a home game. This is the home opener for the Vikings. They didn't allow a single quarterback to pass for 3 touchdowns last season. Remember, they were a top 5 defense last year in both completion percentage against and opponent touchdown to interception rate. They allowed a touchdown pass on a league low 2.3% of attempts last year.
Did they face Jimmy G?
No, they did not face Jimmy Garoppolo, but I mean, I will just listen. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. The three of us, along with a lot of other very smart people, are in an ESPN staff fantasy league. Our friend Mike Clay is the commissioner of it. Ken Dobby is in it. Tristan Cockcroft, Eric Carabella, so on and so forth. Staff. Jimmy Garoppolo is my starting quarterback in that league. I picked up Tyrod Taylor to start Tyrod Taylor in that league this week.
So I'm a fence sitter in this conversation. I have him at 14th, which is to say that I am not totally, if you start him, I am not going to entirely begrudge you. I would look for other options. And one of my favorite week 1 streamers for this situation would be Andy Dalton facing the Swiss cheese defense of the Indianapolis Colts.
I'm with you on the red rifle. I think he's a great DFS play as well. I thought about him. I do like I have Tyrod Taylor ranked higher though.
Yeah, it's both good options for this week. Last one here for the quarterbacks is Patrick Mahomes. His first NFL start of consequence. Yes, he started last year in week 17, but the Chiefs were locked into their seed and the Broncos, they were basically, they were already thinking about the offseason.
Rolling with Mahomes.
Patrick Mahomes, 16 for me, 18 for Matthew and Stephania. You have at number 10. You have implicit confidence that he's going to right away be a starter.
I do. I think some of the stuff we saw in the preseason, we're going to say it again. I get it that Patrick Mahomes comes with risk. That he's going to throw the pick. You're going to have the turnovers there. He's going to make some mistakes. But I think you're also going to see some of the plays like we saw in the preseason, the big bomb to Tyreek Hill down the field. And you're going to you're going to score a ton of fantasy points potentially on a couple of big plays. So I think he will have his struggles against Chargers defense, but I still think he's going to put up noteworthy numbers this week.
Matthew?
For me, this is much more of a, certainly, his first real NFL start is part of it, but it's also about the confidence I have in that Bolts defense, baby. Give me the Bolts, baby blue. I mean, the fact of the matter is, Stephania, you sit here and say, like, hey, there'll be these deep passes to Tyreek Hill. If they do complete that, and certainly I'm not putting anything past the arm of Patrick Mahomes or the speed of Tyreek Hill, but if they do that, it would be a rarity. Chargers allowed the fewest deep completions and the lowest deep completion percentage last season. They allowed multiple passing touchdowns in just 4 times last season. They allowed the 3rd fewest yards per drop back last season. It is a great defense. Both on the line and in the secondary as well. Field, I'm just a big believer in this, and I just don't have a ton of confidence in Patrick Mahomes in his first NFL start. Again, a lot of it because it's week 1 is about being risk averse, and so that's why I'm low on Mahomes. I'm low on Garoppolo on the road at Minnesota.
Yeah, for me, it's like an 80-20 split. 80% of it's the matchup. This is a really good Chargers defense. Matthew just laid out the statistical significance of what they have been able to do over the past year. I think would not be surprised if at the end of this season we are talking about facing the Chargers defense in a comparable vein to that which we discuss the Vikings defense. Maybe not the Jaguars defense, but some of these top-tier elite defense that you would rather avoid with your quarterback. So Case Keenum twice, Derek Carr twice, Patrick Mahomes eventually twice, rather than play them. 20% is just the new factor for Patrick Mahomes and the possibility that he might be a little bit more turnover-prone than a normal quarterback.
And for people with drafts still happening, I have 2 drafts tonight and 1 more tomorrow night. The Chargers are a defense that don't get talked about a lot, Field, but I do think they'll have a very good fantasy season as well. Give me the Bolts. Go Chargers, go. Go Chargers, go.
One thing really quickly to add, Matthew, when you have your draft tomorrow night.
Yeah.
If you are drafting, we used to have it set up where when you are drafting during the game that you could maneuver your starting lineup during your draft, and however your draft ended, that's how it works. The draft is no longer like that. So whoever you're drafting that gets filled in, that's who your starting lineup is going to be. There's no changing if you're drafting during the Thursday night game. So we just want to make sure that everybody knows that.
So if you draft Patrick Mahomes tomorrow night, he is your starter.
No, on Thursday.
No.
If you draft
Thursday night, because
let me clear this up, Daniel. So let's say that during the game, you take Zach Ertz and he fills into your top tight end spot, and then you later draft Rob Gronkowski. That would never happen.
That's a crazy thing.
I get it.
Yes. You would not be able to insert Gronk into the lineup as your
for week
starter
1
at tight end
because
you selected
a guy who was already playing,
and he slots in.
Although I would think that if it's a custom league and you have league manager, you can't go in and you have league manager abilities.
You can, as league manager, you can always go back in and retroactively change scores and stuff like that. Yes.
But the point is this. The point is for the standard settings. Matthew, tell us about Lexus.
I would love to tell you about Lexus. I own a Lexus. I drive a Lexus.
Humble brag right there. NBD, huh?
And I'm hoping that the good people at Lexus, because we're doing live reads for them, send me a new one. Because it's not a 2018 Lexus that I drive.
You know what, Matthew?
What?
You shoot your shot.
Absolutely. Shoot or shoot. I'm Jimmer Fredette over here looking for a Lexus. You get the For Him stuff. I want a Lexus, all man. Right. Because I got to tell you something, Field. The all-new Lexus ESF Sport is here. Lexus has taken everything they've ever mastered and put it in the ES. Daring design, imaginative technology, dynamic performance, because crafting every detail to surpass expectations means nothing if it doesn't lead to the experience of something greater. Every curve, innovation, and feeling is a product of mastery, epitome of unconventional craftsmanship. Hand stitching on the dash, 3-dimensional quilted seat designs. I know you would like that, Starfania. The ES features exquisite linear espresso and linear dark mocha wood trims. Multi-layered works of art inspired by a Lexus exclusive design that requires 67 manufacturing steps over 38 days. They take their time. Years of research and exhaustive testing. One result is a robust 302 horsepower, 3.5-liter direct injection V6 engine, further amplifying its breakthrough performance. It's breathtaking performance, I should say. An all-new 8-speed automatic transmission delivers intuitive responsiveness and seamless acceleration. Class-leading standard Lexus Safety System 2.0, an integrated suite of class-leading standard active safety equipment, lane tracing assistance, monitors visible lane markings in preceding vehicles to help you keep centered in the lane. I need that. Pre-collision system with pedestrian and bicyclist detection. Should it detect a potential frontal collision, it can automatically help brake the vehicle to stop. Every curve, every innovation, every feeling, a product of mastery experience. Amazing at your Lexus dealer. And Field, I should note, Elite Picks is brought to you by Lexus. So let's get into those elite picks.
Nice note by you, Matthew. Let's discuss wide receivers, and there may not be a more talked about wide receiver this weekend than Odell Beckham Jr., who returns after missing much of last year because of an ankle injury. His first challenge, Jalen Ramsey and the Jaguars. Stephania, you have him at 4. I have him at 8. Matthew has him at 7. We are all saying he is a starter, a must start, if you will. Stephania, I'm going to ask you 2 things. First of all, how much confidence do you have in the ankle? Second of all, do you have any concerns about the matchup?
Let me start with the ankle, which I've been on the record saying many times that what I've seen from Odell in the preseason in terms of the way he's moving at practice, the way he's turning, pivoting on that ankle, the one-handed catches, the things that were classic Odell, we've seen. The only thing we really haven't seen is Odell in traffic, and that's how the injury happened. So you would just like him to get over that hurdle of coming down one-on-one in contact situations, bouncing back up and being fine. It's more of a mental hurdle for an athlete coming back from an injury like this, which was so violent, broke his ankle. Obviously had to have the surgery and whatnot. But as far as his mobility, he looks like the same guy. He's going to get that challenge in this matchup, because there will be contact. He will have guys all over him, probably one named Jalen Ramsey. But here's the thing. These are elite picks, right? Elite picks brought to us by Lexus.
Yeah, exactly. And
He's
I noticed during your analysis you mentioned that we hadn't seen him in traffic yet.
Yes.
So I like that. Because if you were going to be stuck in traffic, you'd like to at least be in a luxurious Lexus.
Right. So if he's an elite pick, I'm certainly not overly concerned about the matchup. Like you said, we all have him as a starter. I think that we're going to see vintage Odell, and I think he's eager to show that off. Look, the defense can't win every matchup, and they're going to go to Odell often.
I'm a little nervous. I mean, look, I have him ranked 7th, but remember, last 3 seasons, Beckham's averaging 9.4 fantasy points per game in his first game of the season, over 20 points the rest of the way. For some reason, whether it's Eli Manning starting slow or because of, a preseason where he didn't play a lot, a little bit of rust. Again, season long, you're starting him, but maybe he's a fade in DFS unless you're doing sort of a contrarian play. I don't think he's somebody that's going to be rostered in a ton of GPPs.
Yeah, don't want to overthink this one too much because, on average, a wide receiver performs significantly worse against Jalen Ramsey and the Jaguars than they do in most weeks. But as Kyle notes, we did have some robust performances from the likes of Antonio Brown and DeAndre Hopkins in 2017. I just can't wait for the trash talk. Doug Baldwin, he makes his season, I guess not really his season debut. Everybody's making their season debut. But the point is he did not play during the preseason because
he's making his debut for us, for the eyeballs.
That's right,
we haven't
the eyeball
seen
debut.
him. I knew what you meant.
Surprisingly, Stephania, who of course is our injury expert here at ESPN, has the most confidence in him at wide receiver 15. Matthew and I have him at 20 and 19 respectively. Stephania, should I take this as a sign that you are not concerned about his limitations in week 1?
I think the way you phrase the question is exactly how I look at it. I'm not really concerned about limitations for Doug Baldwin in week 1. This has all been about getting him ready for week 1. When he first was sidelined with the injury in the preseason and Pete Carroll said he had knee soreness, he was going to be out a few weeks, we talked about why that made us nervous because it sounded like that was sidelining somebody for a long period of time for something that was so innocuous. And yet Doug Baldwin comes back and essentially confirms what we suspected, that this is going to be something he'll have to manage across the course of the season. So the things I worry about are what happens as the season gets longer. What happens as he has more, bump and run contact? What happens as he goes to the ground? Does the knee start to bother him as the season goes on? I think actually you might get the best of Doug Baldwin right at the start of the year. He's obviously their primary target. So I like him more than you guys do week 1.
Matthew, this is not the same Broncos defense that we are often accustomed to. Aqib Talib is now a Ram. Are you concerned at all about the matchup, though, for Doug Baldwin, all that being said?
Yeah, because Chris Harris is still there, and Chris Harris often goes into the slot. Our colleague Mike Clay does a great job with his wide receiver cornerback matchup column every single week. Highly recommend it. And he highlights this as one of his matchups that he's a little bit concerned about the fact, noting, of course, that Harris is one of the few, kind of elite shutdown corners that does travel into the slot. He will follow a guy into the slot. When you think about the question marks outside of Doug Baldwin, the Seahawks receiving core, you would expect Harris to shadow Baldwin for a majority of this game. And he's also been a bit of a slow starter, which is not surprising because Russell Wilson is a bit of a slow starter. Last 3 years, weeks 1 through 5, Doug Baldwin averages under 14 fantasy points per game in PPR, 13.8. Week 6 through 17, he averages 17 fantasy points per game. 19% lower in the first 5 weeks of the season, Doug Baldwin, last 3 years. And now you're dealing with a little bit of rust because he hasn't played any in the preseason and a bad matchup here with Chris Harris. Volume is what keeps him inside my top 20, but just barely.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Matthew. We don't have a huge split for any of us on this particular player. Allen Robinson makes his Bears regular season debut, of course, in week 1. We saw him just briefly on during the preseason, I should say. We don't really have any disagreement here. As a matter of fact, we are all within 2 slots of Allen Robinson. Stephania at 18, Matthew at 19, me at 20. Stephania, again, I asked you the question of no concerns about limitations for a player that week 1 of last year tore his ACL.
I wouldn't say zero concerns because, as you mentioned, even though we saw him, it was just for a brief moment. We didn't really see the full display. How's Allen Robinson going to feel going for a full 4 quarters, etc.? But I will say this. Because he tore his ACL so early last year, he had the benefit of that extended rehab window, and he and Mitch Trubisky worked together in the offseason. I mean, Allen Robinson was cleared for full go in practice much earlier than a lot of other guys that we're talking about who had season-ending injuries last year. And because of that, they had a chance to work together, and he was running routes and doing things that you might worry about would show up in a game situation for guys that hadn't played together much. So I'm less concerned about that. Not the same challenges in my mind for a wide receiver quite as a running back. The stop, plant, sharp cut things. I'm more worried about, say, Dalvin Cook coming back in the first few games and ramping up as opposed to Allen Robinson. So while I don't think we may get necessarily the best of him in week 1, I'm not overly concerned.
I like the matchup a lot this weekend. They play the Green Bay Packers who have a patchwork secondary, and I get it. Everybody's team should be better on paper going into the season than maybe it will end up being once we get into the season itself. But I do believe that Green Bay's defense is still a major question mark. They were 29th against wide receivers in terms of fantasy points allowed in 2017. And I think that of the stories that I'm most closely monitoring going into the fantasy football season, 2 that are of particular interest are how Patrick Mahomes evolves as a player and how this Bears offense comes together. Sure. New system and so many new pieces, not to mention a good new defensive addition as well. I think that it's going to be a fascinating season for the Bears offense.
I would agree with that, and I think this is going to be kind of a sneakily high-scoring game. Obviously, when you have Aaron Rodgers on the other side and it's a home opener at Lambeau, that's exciting. The over-under in this game is 48 field, so Vegas is expecting a decent amount of points to be scored here. And so, again, it's a little bit of speculation, but we do think that when Mitch Trubisky is going to be throwing, and we think they're going to be throwing, it's going to be a pass-first offense under Matt Nagy, that Allen Robinson will be the number 1 target for Mitch Trubisky. Although, having said that, I can't possibly get enough Trey Burton shares.
With you on
so love me some Trey Burton.
Love the matchup that's coming down tomorrow night, Falcons and Eagles. I cannot wait for football to be back. I know, it's crazy. Wake up tomorrow and we have football coming our way. Nelson Aguilar is 25 in my wide receiver ranks for week 1. Matthew has him at 29. Stephania, you're a bit lower for now.
For now, I'm probably going to move him up now. I was looking at this just by default because Alshon Jeffrey's not going to be there. Yeah. Obviously, Aguilar is going to be much more of a target. I was really down on him coming into this season because, look, he was out with an undisclosed injury. We still don't really know what it was. A lower body injury. He's had some issues with knee problems in the past, been a little bit banged up consistently, and just returned to practice last Sunday. So this is a guy who's been out virtually the entire preseason. I still don't feel great about it, even though by default I will move him up a little bit.
Yeah, I think he's a really good player who obviously made a major stride last year.
You know what? It's interesting. I mean, you and I both have him inside of our top 30. You're highest on him field. And candidly, I mean, I'm at 29 and I might be too low on him. To Stefania's point, the fact that we just haven't seen him, we haven't seen him and Nick Foles on the field together very much this preseason gives you a bit pause. But I do think this game is also a little bit of a shootout. I think there's a lot of points scored here. You think about Nelson Aguilar, who led all pass catchers in fantasy points from the slot last season, and then this matchup against a Falcons team that gave up the 4th most slot touchdowns and the 3rd highest completion percentage to players when the slot was targeted in 2017. And again, it's different schemes and it's a new year, but it's all we really have to go on for this year. So So it's more of a guessing game in week 1 than it is as we get further into the season. But honestly, to Stefania's point, with no Nelson Aguilar, with Jay Ajayi a little
Jeffrey.
bit, huh?
No Alshon Jeffrey.
No Alshon Jeffrey, correct. With no Alshon Jeffrey and just Aguilar and Ertz as really pass catchers. No Matt Collins is either. We'll see if Mike Wallace does anything here. You would expect a heavy volume for Aguilar in a game that there should be some points scored.
Last one here amongst wide receivers, a fascinating one. Josh Gordon is expected to play, maybe some, in week 1 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. I've got him at 38. I'll cop to it right now. Matthew has him at 24, Stefania at 26. I will just say this. I'm okay if I miss the boat here on Josh Gordon. If I miss the boat entirely, I'm going to be able to live with it because I think there is a possibility that Josh Gordon plays 18 to 20 snaps in this game. He's the third wide receiver. He's a backup player for them in this offense in week 1. Not all season. You cannot hold a player of this caliber down for the entire season. But I do have some concerns about Josh Gordon's week 1 role that I understand why you drafted him. And I know you have a lot of hope for him if you did draft Josh Gordon. But in most cases, I am fading Josh Gordon in week 1. Call it a gut call. Call it whatever you want. That's just how I'm approaching it this week.
So I'm starting Josh Gordon. I mean, I have him as a flex play. I have a flex play with upside. He's my wide receiver 24, his wide receiver 3. Think about week 17 last year, facing these same Steelers, Josh Gordon, 4 for 115 with Deshaun Kaiser as his quarterback. And maybe I'll be proven wrong on this, but what I've been saying all offseason is that Tyrod Taylor's arm is made for a player like Josh Gordon. So much hype around Jarvis Landry, and understandably so, given how charismatic he is and given the talent of the player as well. But Tyrod likes to chuck it deep, and if ever there's a guy that can go grab it, it's Josh Gordon. Remember, 6 different receivers scored 18 fantasy points or more against the Steelers last season. All of them stood at least 6 foot tall. Of course, Gordon 6'3". You think about sort of some of the magic moments with Sammy Watkins when he's had a deep threat. Tyrod has certainly taken advantage of it. I know the non-starter thing on Josh Gordon. I think once he gets out there, he's not coming back out.
I think that he will be limited in volume, and part of that too, in addition to just being, late to camp and them kind of controlling his workload, he also had some hamstring soreness, and they probably don't want to put him out and have him run around the entire game. But I think he has the potential for that one big play this week. I agree with you. Flex with upside. Kind of want to see what he does in this first game. But I wouldn't be shocked if it ends up like Field says either. So there's some risk in it, but I think the upside is there, and I would put him in a flex start.
There's always risk, obviously, but just under the category of what's most likely to happen, when you're looking at a wide receiver outside the top 20, why not pick a guy that has that kind of potential?
Hey, don't forget,
sort of my argument.
Don't forget, you can join our Pigskin Pick'em group. Search ESPN's Fantasy Focus 06010, and this season we are playing against the spread. The group ID number, 66873. Again, 66873. Play against us, make some picks.
When it comes to tailgating, you're in a league of your own, so you gotta pick a bun that plays at the same level. Ballpark Buns, otherwise known as America's favorite buns, always deliver the goods. Find Ballpark Buns near you at ballparkbuns.com.
Fantasy, you in the whole 6010. Focus. Fantasy focus.
Let's move along to running backs this week, and Saquon Barkley makes his NFL debut. Stefania has him at 5th, Matthew at 12th. I have him at 9. Matthew, you first. Why are you're still saying he's a starter, but you're a little bit nervous about Saquon in his NFL debut?
We just haven't seen him, dealing with, I know he's started to practice again, but the limited hamstring injury, concern of what happens if the Giants get down in this game. We haven't seen that offensive line together yet as well. Remember, running backs that struggled against Jacksonville last season, Le'Veon Bell, Melvin Gordon, DeMarco Murray, Carlos Hyde, all of them had under 55 yards. And that's, those are all guys that had good years last year, well, except maybe DeMarco Murray. But the fact of the matter is they were top 12 against running backs last year. You're still starting them. I still have them at 12, but yeah, there's just some running backs that I have more confidence in until we've seen it. Just a tough matchup that I think will be a fairly low-scoring game.
But Stefania, the good news is that you are not concerned about the hamstring injury that has limited Saquon Barkley since basically that one awesome run against the Cleveland Browns.
Right. And I think that the Giants were very proactive here, and understandably so. They were like, okay, we've seen what he could do. He had that electric, debut, first play, and there he goes. And then he had a sore hamstring, and they're thinking, we're not going to put him back out there and take a risk that something relatively mild turns into something that's going to compromise him down the stretch, because we intend to feature him and feature him a lot. And that's why I have him ranked so high this week. Yes, I know it's Jacksonville. I've already said I think Odell's going to require a lot of attention. That gives maybe Saquon Barkley some more opportunity. We do have some running backs who did well against Jacksonville last year that Kyle noted for us. Bilal Powell, Todd Gurley, 23 carries for 116 yards against the Jags. Derrick Henry had nearly a 100-yard game, and Alex Collins from Baltimore. So I think Saquon has it in him. And I'm looking forward to it.
You're saying Saquon's a young Bilal Powell? Is that what you're saying? That's what I took away from that field. I don't know if you got that too. That's what you would take away
from that.
There you have it.
Or I could say he's like Todd Gurley.
Just take that tweet if everyone could. Just Stephania compared him to Bilal Powell.
Another rookie.
I didn't make it up. I mean, he just said it. I mean, she just said it.
Another rookie running back this year who makes his NFL debut this Sunday is Royce Freeman for the Denver Broncos, going against the Seattle Seahawks. 17 for me, 17 for Stephania, and Matthew at 15. Here's the good news. The Broncos have made it clear, not like, hey, he's going to play a lot. He is their starter.
He's their starter.
Head coach Vance Joseph came out and announced as much. He scored in the first 3 preseason games. He scored basically every game of his college career. Not literally, but he scored like 60 times at Oregon. He is a touchdown-making machine. And if you look at the Seahawks defense, perhaps no team has undergone a more dramatic makeover, and maybe not by design, maybe not by what you want, than Seattle. There is, of course, right now, no Earl Thomas. Richard Sherman is gone. KJ Wright, their fantastic linebacker, he's out for this week because of recent surgery. Cliff Averill retired this offseason. Cam Chancellor's not part of this defense. I mean, it is just a very unfamiliar scene right now in Seattle. Sheldon Richardson is now in Minnesota. I think this is a defense that certainly can be had, and I think the game script we talked about every once in a while, it can favor Denver this week. This is not a game I anticipate them playing from behind a ton. Royce Freeman inside my top 20.
I 100% agree. I mean, I have him at 15. I'm actually the highest of the three of us on Royce Freeman. All in on him this season, all in on him this week as well as an RB2, frankly, with some upside. You mentioned the struggles of the Seattle defense. They've obviously had a tough offseason. They weren't good against the run towards the end of last year, weeks 14 through 17. They allowed the 6th most running back points. And they do, to your point, want to run the ball. You're not going to be able to stack the box because I do believe Case Keenum gives them enough of a threat at the quarterback position where you have to respect the passing game. Yeah, I'm with you on Royce Freeman.
Jamal Williams,
the Rolls Royce.
There you go.
Can we please come up with a different nickname than Rolls Royce? It's so terrible. It's so hacky. It's so on the nose.
Which suits you perfectly.
Thanks, Stephania.
It would have been great.
Wow.
It would have been bad if he wasn't.
Wow. Shots fired, Secret Squirrel. So mean. Starfanya's a bully.
If the Broncos had been adamant that Devontae Booker was their starter at the beginning of the season, it would have been Free Royce, right? Like Free Royce Freeman.
Oh, yeah.
But for good reason, we cannot rely on that nickname. Jamal Williams, for now, is the starting running back in Green Bay, and they face the Chicago Bears. I've got him at 25, same as Matthew. Stephania.
How about Royce? Like rejoice, but Royce.
We'll work on it.
Right.
It's a work in progress.
Royce. It's Freeman.
No, that was bad. Hey, Luna, can you cut that so that I can have that video and share it online to everybody?
Jamal Williams is in line to start for the Green Bay Packers this Sunday night against the Chicago Bears. I've got him at 25, same as Matthew. Stephania, you have him at 35. So, Stephania, is this more because you think that Ty Montgomery is going to be involved, or why a little bit lower on him?
I think he's going to have trouble running against the Bears. That's basically, I'm not really thrilled about Jamal Williams. I suppose I would, depending on my options, I might move him up to a flex worthy spot, but just other guys I like better, and I'm just not feeling great about him against the Bears defense, which I think is underrated in this situation.
Yeah, it may not be underrated for much longer with all the pieces they have in place. Yeah, I think that's probably my biggest concern is this a game where Green Bay is not one of those teams that probably, I think, feels the need to like establish the run or anything?
Actually, you are making my point, because that's what I'm thinking. Like, if he struggles, there's going to be like, throw it.
That being said, I feel like Ty Montgomery's shine has faded so significantly that I think Jamal Williams might have a legit shot at 20 touches this game.
See, that's the thing. Right. Honestly, I would have him ranked higher because with no Aaron Jones in this game and with Ty Montgomery in more of a hybrid role where they'll use him some in the passing game as well, Jamal Williams is in line for a heavy workload. Weeks 10 through 17 last year, only Melvin Gordon had more carries from week 10 on last season. 4 different games with 20 plus carries, so they're used to using him as a workhorse. Now, obviously some of that was because they didn't have Aaron Rodgers. They had Brett Hundley under center. But the fact of the matter is that, in a divisional game like this, the volume I think keeps him in that flex conversation is because the respect that I have for the Bears defense that I have him outside my top 20. Otherwise I might have him more again with no Aaron Jones on an offense that we think is going to score points. Jamal Williams has, a pretty good chance of falling in the end zone this week.
Marshawn Lynch is our last one here. Monday Night Football right here on ESPN.
2 games.
That was close enough, guys. That was close enough.
You know what? But in fairness to Thirsty Kyle, he did hit the button immediately as opposed to Daniel. Because if you can watch me on Twitter, this is what Daniel does. Like, pretend you're Keith.
Yeah.
Field, Luna, if you can take a wide shot here. What happens is what we see. You guys at home don't see this, but what happens is like, we'll call for a drop and you just see Daniel doing this. Daniel's like doing this and he's just like, that's what we see back here in terms of like when a drop gets pulled.
Actually, kind of does look like that.
It's a little. You have no idea. And you're like, could you just? We know it. Could you just pay attention to the show for the 45 minutes we're on? That's all we ask. We're on because he's. There you go.
Yay. Way to go, Kyle.
Thirsty Kyle showing everyone how it is done.
2 games on ESPN beginning actually with the Jets and Lions, followed up by the Marshawn Lynch Raiders and the LA Rams.
Wow.
Matthew has him at 26. Marshawn Lynch, Stephania, and I both have him at 22. Mike Clay and Tristan Cockcroft actually have him outside of their top 30. I think Marshawn Lynch might be undervalued going into this season, but he does face a defense that now not just does it have Aaron Donald, it also has Ndamukong Suh. Are you at all worried, Matthew, this game becomes a blowout and all of a sudden it's
100%.
Like all right, we're down by 20 points at half.
100%. Oh, absolutely. I mean, we didn't get into this, but I think the Rams come in there and just
steamroll
blow the roof off the doors. Yeah. You know what a believer I am in Sean McVay and that offense. Another year in that system, obviously. So everyone's very familiar with McVay's system here, and obviously it has been a tough offseason for our former colleague over there in Oakland. And yes, they just lost a big piece of their defense here. I am concerned about how this game goes, and I think they put up a lot of points here.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit nervous.
As in the Rams put up a lot of points. I think the Rams
put up a lot of points. And I would not surprise me, to your point, you mentioning, they got the deal done with Aaron Donald and, getting Sue and just, whether it's, Peters or Talib or whatever. Like, there's a very good chance Wade Phillips' Rams defense finishes the year as the number 1 fantasy defense. Like, I think it's going to be a great defense.
Here's the reason why I'm keeping Marshawn Lynch inside my top 25. I mentioned a minute ago that the Packers are not one of those teams that's going to say, we're going to establish the run.
Gruden wants to establish it like it's 1998.
That's exactly right. I really, truly believe that it would not stun me if they opened up this game and had like 7 straight handoffs to Marshawn Lynch. I think that volume's going to play in his favor enough that I still have him inside my top 25. Stephania, I'd probably avoid him, though, in DraftKings.
Yeah, no, I would too. It's volume, but
I was trying to do the DraftKings live read.
You live read. Thanks for reading the script.
Thanks for showing up to the show meeting, Stephania.
I caught it. Hold on.
I was literally
really about to applaud.
I want to do this. Luna, this is what we just saw Stephania do. Oh, yeah. That's what you look like.
You know what? Here's the thing.
Did you do that, Kyle?
Look at you. Kyle wins the day. Kyle wins the day. Kyle, you are my new best friend.
You can have him.
Daniel,
I was actually just about to compliment Field Yates on what a professional segue
Nobody
that
cares.
was.
All right, whatever.
No, it was super good. It was super good.
By the way,
but Luna, please make sure you clip off that. What Daniel's attempted acting over there.
Not to mention
Master Thespian Daniel Dopp.
Daniel is telling people like as if they can't actually see me. And they did actually see me, so they know that your impression was terrible.
Tell us about DraftKings.
Hey, you know what, guys?
What?
Football season is here. That's right.
It ain't
starts
so.
tomorrow night. And huge cash prizes are up for grabs at DraftKings, the leader in 1 week fantasy sports. DraftKings is hosting a fantasy football contest this weekend with $2 million up for grabs, and it's free to enter with your first deposit. Get the app or go to DraftKings.com now and use code FOCUS to play free with your first deposit in the play action contest this weekend. That's code FOCUS to play for your share of $2 million. Minimum $5 deposit required. Eligibility restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com for details.
Moving along to tight ends, we begin with Jordan Reed, who Matthew and I both have at 5. Stephania has him at 13.
Shocking.
I'm surprised by this regard, though, Stephania, is I would have understood if this were our season-long ranks that you had him at 13, because I know you are concerned about him eventually getting injured. That being said, going into week 1, Jordan Reed, as far as I know, is going to play on Sunday afternoon at 4:25. Is there any reason to believe he will not play?
No, as far as we know, he will play. But have you seen him at all this preseason? You know why?
Why?
Because he's still injured.
What?
He's coming back from toe surgery, and although we hear the reports, he's been making good progress, he's been doing more and more work, they're gradually increasing his volume, but they're protecting him. He is not demonstrated to us that he's 100%, whereas most players would get the benefit of the doubt. He does not, based on his history. And so for me, there's concern about him coming in, and I just don't know what I'm going to get from Jordan Reed. Is this going to be the kind of thing where the toe's still a little sore and he comes in, he's out after a few plays? Yes, there's a potential. Field, earlier you said you're willing to be wrong on Josh Gordon. Yep. I'm willing to be wrong on Jordan Reed. And
you will be.
And that's fine. I know it's your team, so you accuse me of bias with the 49ers. I know when it comes to this team, you are not all clear in the head, so I'll address Field.
Clear eyes, full heart, can't lose. Hail to the Redskins. Hail victory.
But I think, all kidding aside, this is where, when I look at the tight ends, I would start 1 through 12 before
But if he's
him.
active, hang on for a second. I want to just, in all seriousness, because you and I joke about the Redskins. In all seriousness, you and I joke about the Redskins all the time, and we joke about Jordan Reed. But in all seriousness, if Jordan Reed is declared active for this game, which is what we expect,
yes,
you're telling me there are 12 other tight ends that you would rather start than Jordan Reed going against an Arizona Cardinals team that was a top 10 worst defense in the red zone last year with Alex Smith as their quarterback. Like, you're saying there's 12 other tight ends that you would rather start than an active Jordan Reed.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Everybody has their players, Matthew. You and I see it the same way, Matthew. I actually have Jordan Reed in a couple of leagues this year, and I was surprised at the discount in which I was able to acquire him just because of some of the concerns. And I get it. I just happened to add a second tight end. As a matter of fact, I ended
100%.
up going a little bit too early on my second tight end because, let me just make this up. Yeah, I understand Jack Doyle and Jordan Reed could prove superfluous on the same roster, but if Jordan Reed gets banged up in week 3, Jack Doyle waiting in the wings. Last one here, and a note. The Giants announced just moments before this, or actually during this podcast, that Evan Ingram has been cleared.
Whoa, hang on. Let Thirsty Kyle play the drop.
ESPN Radio, breaking news.
Nice job, Thirsty Kyle.
That's
how it's done. Did you take notes, Daniel?
The Giants announced during this podcast that Evan Ingram has been cleared from the concussion protocol. He, of course, their second-year tight end. For week 1, he is at 13 for me. Stephania has him at 6. Matthew has him at 8. Now, obviously, part of mine was the concern about him not being able to play, so I will adjust it a little bit, but not a lot, because this matchup is imposing. I get it, and I tell you guys often, I don't necessarily always buy in on these tight end stats because it just takes one matchup against Gronk to throw things completely out of whack. But this Jaguars defense has all the ingredients to lock up any player, whether it's tight end, wide receiver, running back, you name it. I'm nervous.
I understand that, and certainly the fact that he's been out for a little bit. The reason why I have a little bit more confidence than you, Field, I have him at 8, is because the way you attack the Jacksonville Jaguars is in the middle of the field because their corners are so good. To the extent that anyone has had success against the Jaguars, and it's not a lot, but to the extent that any position has had success against the Jaguars, it has at least last year, was the tight end. That was an area of the field that you could attack
if
somewhat.
There was an area.
If there was, again, I mean, it's a great defense. We make no questions about that. But because it gets a little thin quickly with the tight end position, and because I do think Ramsey and Bouye will have Shepard and Beckham on lockdown, I think you'll see Barkley still finding his way onto the field a little bit as a rookie. I do think Ingram will get a heavier target share than he will the rest of the year.
And just look how productive he was last year when he was the only thing going in the pass catching game. So everybody could key in on him. They had no run game to speak of, and he was still uber productive. Now they have to worry about Saquon Barkley and Odell Beckham Jr. and potentially even Sterling Shepard. So I still like Evan Engram this week.
Here's why we're a big fan of Simply Safe Home Security. Simply Safe is ready for anything that gets thrown at it. If a storm takes out your power, Simply Safe is ready. An intruder cuts your phone line, Simply Safe is ready. Say they destroy your keypad or siren or your IFB, Simply Safe will still get you the help you need. Sure, maybe it's overkill. Maybe you don't need to be ready for every worst case scenario, but that's what makes Simply Safe Home Security System so great. It is always ready. Simply Safe could cost an arm and a leg, but it doesn't. Instead, they only charge you what's fair. 24/7 professional security monitoring is just $14.99 a month. There are no contracts and no hidden fees. Go to simplysafe.com/football today. That's simplysafe.com/football to protect your home and family today. simplysafe.com/football.
It's New York Times bestselling author Matthew Berry with another self-serving, self-indulgent, all-about-me promo.
It is the fantasy football season, and when you're in the fantasy football season, you know what you need to do?
What do? You
got to gear up. FantasyLife.com. If you use the promo code MB10, you get 10% off. There's apparel, there's tumblers, there's hats. We've got stuff for women, Stephania. We've got socks.
I like the ladies.
There's all sorts of gear there. FantasyLife.com.
Nice shirts.
Very nice shirts. The hats are great. The tumblers are awesome.
I have my draft juice tumbler.
Yeah, if you're sitting here if you're watching on the Twitter, you can see what these tumblers look like.
Very cool.
They're they keep the cool stuff cold. They keep the hot stuff hot. They're really high quality. It's
Matthew
really good
just showed
stuff.
you, if you punch them, they won't break, which is good.
This is also true. And in fairness, though, I don't have a particularly strong punch. Anyway, FantasyLife.com. Use the promo code MB10. I promise you there is something for you there. Hey, real quickly, while we're just slow down for 1 second, want to give a couple of shout-outs here real quickly. I just saw this tweet from at Cabo_Chris, who came to our LA show.
I saw that one too.
Yeah, and he's in the Yaters Gonna Yate League.
Nice.
And basically, this is what I think is happening here, and he showed us his team, but I think what happened is they met a bunch of people in line at our LA live show, and they formed a league.
Nice.
Which I think that's pretty cool. That's the sense that I get from this particular tweet. So, anyway, so love to see this. Oh, we have poll?
We have a poll here. The poll from yesterday
this is
was
outrageous, by the way.
Highest
That's
in the
totally
War Room
crazy.
League with nearly 3,000 votes. The options were Matthew, Fielder, Stephania. Stephania finished last, 28%.
Without our teams drafted.
Matthew finishes second at 30%, and yours truly gets 42% of the vote to take home the victory.
Was this like a good looks vote? Because then I understand why Field ran away with it. But if it's actually about performance in the War Room League, just a little historical, factual background for you people. Matthew, you've won the War Room League.
I've actually won the league. I'm a former champion.
I was in the finals one year, came in second.
Yep.
Close matchup against the producers. Injury took me down, but came in second.
Right.
Yeah.
Field,
I've only been in it twice. I've only been in this league for 2 years.
Okay,
so
but
third is my highest finish. Third and fourth, I believe it was.
But last year you would have. Last year you did a completely legal move, and it was great fun for the podcast. But you basically, I was playing you on the week that Todd Gurley had his bye week, and you guys traded Todd Gurley away, and you traded your whole team in order to basically beat me that 1 week. You traded a bunch of guys that you had on bye or injured specifically to beat me that 1 week, which it ended up working.
This is a great example. Not even telling nearly any context.
Like, you talk about revisionist history, but
it's all true.
That's hilarious.
It's all
my
true.
team was 2-5 and literally needed to run the table to win, to make the playoffs. And we made a trade that gave us 3 starters for 1, and we ran the table and made the playoffs and finished third. I love how you make that like I did something to try to be. I
talked to your co-manager Matt Harrington. Harrington will back me up on this one.
Got it.
You guys sold out Todd Gurley to try to beat me.
Which
is what it is.
We are
it's
back.
Fine.
We are back tomorrow for the podcast on Thursday, previewing an actual football game. Follow the show at Fantasy Focus.
War Room League Draft tonight. We'll be sure to talk about that, I'm sure.
Looking forward to that. Matthew Berry, TMR, on all forms of social media, except for the Fantasy Life app. He's just at Matthew Berry.
Yes, sir.
Stefania is Stefania, B87 on Instagram, and Stefania_ESPN. I am at Field Yates on Twitter and Instagram. Love to have fun engaging with all of you on those mediums. We'll talk to you on Thursday.
Check out the Fantasy Show on ESPN Plus. Peace out!
The big news from Subaru is the all-new 3-row Ascent. It's the biggest SUV from Subaru ever. There's room for 7 or 8 passengers, with a choice of second-row captain's chairs or bench seating. It'll tow up to 5,000 pounds, and it has all the interior space you need for all your gear. And it gets your whole crew to the game with the safety of a Subaru, including standard symmetrical all-wheel drive. The all-new 3-row Subaru Ascent. Love is now bigger than ever. Maximum towing capacity varies by trim level, and trailer brakes may be required. See your retailer for details.